Lucky Boys Podcast.
If they wanted to be a scumbag, they can live rent-free 6 to 12 months before the law actually moves on getting them the hell out of there.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I do understand generally what you're saying.
I have friends that rent out, and I mean, Nora, I know you.
Yeah, I tell you this story. My family had a house in Brooklyn, Bushwick.
Sure. Yep.
And he bought it, but there were tenants in there.
Okay.
And so he gave them adequate enough time to kind of look for a property,
Right.
And look for another place
Sure.
and leave. But the tenant decided not to. So he stayed there. It took him up to 2 years to evict them.
Holy
Going through
Some tenants...
I underestimated that one greatly.
yeah.
I said
That's-
6 to 12 months, 24
I mean,
months?
that's actually really nice to
24
that's
months
expedited.
rent-free?
Yeah, expedited.
And
Believe
that's
it or not, there are...
That is robbery.
Believe it or not, in this industry, there are some people that are professional tenants, right? They know what they're doing, and they know all the laws.
How to live rent-free in New York City.
Correct. Well, I'll give you an example. One of my friends that purchased a property, undervalued, was going to make probably 2 times his money on the deal, fixed everything up, just needed to have somebody to come in and review all the work to make sure it's been done correctly. All of a sudden, over the weekend, someone breaks in. A person decides to stay.
Wait, that person who broke in
The
decided
person
to stay.
that broke in, squatter,
Right.
decided to stay
Okay.
and not leave.
Mhm.
And then when the landlord came over to try to evict them, they ran into some legal troubles. And what ended up happening was they had to keep the tenant in there for 2 months to fully evict them. And by the time they were done, because there was no electricity in the house, the pipes weren't working correctly yet.
So it's not considered a legal dwelling.
Well, it's not even that. It's the fact that they destroyed your property.
Oh,
Think about it. There's no electricity in the house, right?
Mhm.
So what are they doing? They're lighting candles. They're doing this.
Right.
They're doing that. I mean, they'll do whatever they need to do to survive.
But isn't that breaking and entering?
That could be viewed as breaking and entering, but guess what? That tenant understood the rules enough to stay in there for 2 months.
But
So-
can't they get arrested for that?
Wait. So So he wasn't this person, the squatter, wasn't a legal tenant, but he knew enough about the laws
Yes.
to take advantage
Play
of
the system.
play the system.
Yeah, but
and
how
squat.
can you go in a home
Yep.
and squat if you don't have a legal contract to say that you and the person who owns the dwelling agree that you can stay here under some type of agreement?
Let me ask you this.
There was no agreement.
Let
there.
me ask you
Can't
this.
you just freaking yoke them out?
As a landlord, correct. However, what if the tenant makes up a lease?
But you never signed anything. There's nothing legally binding.
You would not have any idea how much some of these professional tenants know how to work around the system. A lot of them, from my understanding of recently, decide to do this just so they can get a buyout
But they
from
would
the landlord.
they would even need to know the landlord's name.
Yeah. And it's not hard to find a landlord's name.
It's not.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's
you
very
could,
easy.
You could find out on the internet. Google it. You could find like who owns what property, how long they own it, like a lot of information online.
Let's put it this way. New York City is so technologically advanced that we have a system that's from the city that provides your personal information to anyone that decides to log
Time
into the site.
out. Time the fuck out. So you're saying
Yep.
if you have a condo,
Yep.
a sweet penthouse,
Yes.
balcony, bola status, everything, and
Yes.
let's just say it's like one of these condos that's like 5 figures a month,
Yes.
in Manhattan,
Yes.
and like for whatever reason, the door was unlocked and there's nobody residing in it, and I just happen to know who the landlord is, and I draw up a fake lease agreement, and I walk in there. I can stay there for 2 months rent free.
Again, I'm not an attorney. I can't give legal advice. But has it been done? Plenty of times.
Holy cow! So for 2 months, I could pretend
Squatters
like,
have rights too.
I could pretend like
well,
I
here's
am
the thing, right?
most baller dude in New York, and just bring a whole bunch of people up from the bars.
Well, here's the
and hang
thing,
out.
right? Here's the thing, right? Some of these professional
That's
tenants
insane.
also know that if they go in as a squatter, they can make enough trouble for you to have to pay legal fees. And if they try to hit you and say, you know what, you're going to pay $10,000 in legal fees, give me $7,000, I'll walk out right now. It's been done.
How is
and
that?
It happens.
How is that even legal?
That's happened
That's
to me.
blackmail.
Not the whole squatter thing, but that's happened to me where
That's-
my tenant, I tried to evict them, but they decided that they wanted to stay, even though their lease was up.
Right.
So I took them to court. But then obviously, if you take them to court, there's a legal proceeding. There's
Right.
the eviction process that takes
It's a pain in
And
the
they
ass.
months.
delay
That takes-
the process.
that takes 2 to
They
3
can make
months.
it very painful
And
for you.
And the fact is, like, if you don't want the headache, you would pay them to leave.
That's
So I
right.
paid them $2,000, 2,000, like a month's rent for them
That's
to leave.
why they
You
say.
know what? I'm just gonna call Joey, Ray,
and then
make a visit to their door.
Then if they document that,
yes, you got the
No,
distinction.
how do they know it's from me? How do they know it's from me?
well, guess what
How do
happens?
they know from me?
Well, guess what happens? You, like I said, in New York City, they look out for the tenants, right? And it makes sense, right?
Jeez,
Because
I'm just
at the end
kidding.
of the
Don't
day-
don't send someone.
Right.
But holy crap, that's so frustrating.
Super
That's
frustrating.
so frustrating. I mean, these guys are fucking stealing.
Well, that's why they say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
That's such a
Right?
scummy way.
That's a good way to look at
True,
it.
right? Because you have to go through, and that's why some people, when they see HGTV and then they try to apply it on buying an investment property or whatever it is, I always say, look, there's always going to be a deal around the corner if you've got a deal now. And if you are not good at something, you don't know how to manage or you don't know how to do the construction, find someone that is really good at it with good integrity and partner up with them.